sound financial advice from our subject matter expert, Jeff Drake. If you have any questions, please enter them into your comment section, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible, time permitting. Jeff, again, thank you for appearing on our program during this especially busy time of the year for you. So let's start off. People want to hear Jeff talk, not me. Jeff, how are charitable organizations and small businesses affected and or aided by the stimulus package?
Well, basically, almost everybody has been affected in some way or another. You're talking about your lodges, you're talking about small businesses, you're talking about charities. They've all seen a reduction in their income, additional expenses, maybe employees out. So what has happened is the government came quickly and tried to put in some of these tax packages in various phases. It's been very much confusion and very much misunderstanding of all the things that were there. Originally, they said a lot of these programs were for nonprofits. Well, when the final regulations came out, they're basically for 501c3, 501c19, which are the veterans organizations, and tribal. The main one that people have been talking about is the payroll protection plan, the PPP loans that are out there. So charities, 501c3s can apply for those if they have employees. Small businesses can. The other membership organizations would have to use some of the other programs to try to help them go through this cash crisis that a lot of people are now having when it comes to reduction in revenues, and the expenses really haven't disappeared.
Can you tell us what those other programs might be that the lodges might be able to avail themselves of, just quickly?
Luckily tonight, the House finally passed additional funding. I'm sure a lot of people heard that the funding for the PPP programs, the economic disaster loans, ran out. It seemed amazing that $2.2 trillion could be used up in 13 days. Just at 5:30 this evening, they did pass another $484 billion bill that has put more money into the programs that I'm going to mention. Okay,
that's billion. That's billion with a B, right? Billion with a B.
Like in billion. So
yep. Okay.
Now our tax funds have gone to close to $3 trillion.
Okay. Justin, do we have any questions yet from the audience?
Yeah, we do. We have a question that came in. It reads, Mark, PPP SBA loans, when given a separate account, what can we do to get forgiveness?
Okay, so, Jeff, so that they're looking to ask about those specific programs, the SBA loans, and I think the 75-25 program. Can you explain that, Jeff?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the programs under this act is the Payroll Protection Program. That's the PPP loan everybody's been talking about. So if you have payroll and you are a 501c3 or a for-profit entity, you can request up to 2.5 months worth of your average payroll and be forgiven if you use it to retain your employees. So the requirements are that when you get the money, that you have to keep track of those funds. 75% of the money has to be used for payroll. That includes gross payroll, health insurance if the company's paying for that, also state unemployment taxes. The other 25% can be used for rent, utilities, and interest on existing loans that you had before this event. You have to track everything that you spend, and if once you receive the money, in the 8 weeks afterwards, if you spend that money and use it 75% for payroll expenditures and 25% for other, they will forgive the loan. The other caveat is that they part of all these programs were to keep people employed. So you couldn't have had 10 employees before and only have 3 people working now. You have to bring those people back through a June 30th date in order to receive 100% forgiveness of the debt.
Okay.
The suggestion.
I just wanted to tag off of that answer. We've had some seeming abuse of the stimulus package program, with the Shake Shack being shamed into returning $10 million back to the government. The richest university in the nation, Harvard University, being offered $9 million, which I recently understand that they are turning down. Now, more importantly from this, how do we get the money back into the hands of the small business owners and the people who need it the most?
Well, when these programs first came out, I think a lot of companies jumped right away. Obviously, the larger companies, they got in very early under the wire, following by the rules that were there. If they were under 500 employees, they had the payroll, they were continuing, they qualified for the loan and they applied. And because they had a whole gamut of accountants and bankers behind them, they were able to get in and get the loans. Most of the small businesses were struggling to figure out how to do it, had problems with the online systems, and took them a little longer. As a matter of fact, sole proprietors, the real small businesses, had to wait a week before they could even start applications. So yeah, I've kind of mixed feelings whether a big organization that had money should have ever applied and gotten $10 million. It was really meant for those that were going to have a cash shortage within 30 to 90 days.
Okay, thank you. Justin, do we have any another question from the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question from the OSDIA Cincinnati group. They first wanted to thank us for this live event. And then they wanted to ask, Jeff, what are the maybe top 3 tips or advice you have for small local businesses to stay afloat right now?
So Jeff, how are we going to keep these small businesses, which now they're not these businesses with 500 that do still are allowed to get the stimulus package, but they're the kind of the bread and butter, the heart and soul of this country. How does that work for them? What can you tell them about best practices for getting the loans?
Yeah, I think if you talk to any financial advisor, they'll tell you you should always have a budget, and you should at some point right now take a look at what is your cash position, what are you doing, what are your needs, and you really want to look at what you have to have, the necessities, whether it be personal or for business, and cut out any unusual expenditures right now to try to map through, because it certainly is undetermined at this point. I've heard different predictions. Maybe some things will open in May, maybe some as far as June, to try to hold on to your cash and take a look at some of these programs that are out there. PPP if you have payroll, the SBA disaster relief money now is refunded to try to get some of that. And for-profits and nonprofits, all the nonprofits can apply for the disaster relief grant and also SBA loans, which are at very lucrative rates. So 3.75 for a for-profit, 2.75 for a small business.
Okay. Now, can you comment on what individuals need to do in regards to mortgages, rent, loans, car payments? Is there a strategy that you can suggest? What are you advising your clients?
So there are some different things in different areas. Maryland had passed a rule that you can't be evicted, you can't have your utilities off, they can't give you a bad credit rating for including your, for being late on payments, but it doesn't really forgive the money. So the suggestion for everyone is to contact your banks. Many of them will work on deferment payment plans. they're not giving you anything, but will defer your cash flow for the current being. Many people were waiting for unemployment, stimulus checks, things like that to have money to be able to pay their bills. So if you can do that, even the car companies have offered to defer for a couple of months. Banks the same way. So contact all your vendors, utilities, and ask for what options they have to help you with cash flow. So,
okay, good advice. Good advice. So, what does one do if you've put in for a stimulus package? This is going forward. What do you do, and you're not hearing back from your bank? What do you recommend?
Yeah. So initially, what was happening, they were overwhelmed with all these applications, just trying to get their website up to handle the applications and understand what SBA was asking them to do. After now the second round, now that there's fundings there, best thing to do is try to call your banker if you have a relationship with them. If you file the application, it can take several days, up to a week or more. You should hear back if they need additional information. You'll get a confirmation letter if they are going to fund your loan. Many of them were contacted when the money ran out last week, but typically you'll get a funding letter, and usually within 10 days, funding will come forward, or they'll ask you if you have more information. So it has taken a while to process the volume of transactions that they had received, more than they ever expected.
Talk a little bit about the stimulus checks that are coming in the mail. How far along the process are we? Are people getting money? How long is it going to take to get everybody their money? Let's put it that way.
Right. So yeah, they promised to try to get these out as quickly as possible. They started with Social Security and returns that have direct deposit on their 18 or 19 return. And then they'll start processing the rest. You can go to irs.gov, get my payment. Unfortunately, they've processed, as of the other day, 80 million, and there's still another 170 million stimulus payments to be done. So you may get we can't process your payment. So just be diligent. It may take a few days. Original projections, they would be done earlier this week. Sounds like within the next few days it should be there. Once you can get in, if you don't have direct deposit, you can actually enter that information in to expedite you getting a check from them.
If I may step in here, we have a relevant question from the audience.
Great.
Mark, the question is there a certain amount of time in which the loan has to be used, or can it be spread out over a period of time, long period of time, short period of time?
So Jeff, what's the timing on these loans? Is it there a variable? How long can you push it out? I'm probably sure that there's no prepayment penalty, that the government would like to get their money back as soon as possible. But comment on the longevity and how that works, and what's the best strategy for people who are getting the loans.
Okay, so the PPP loan, the payroll protection loan, once you get that funding, that's supposed to be spent within 8 weeks.
Okay.
In order for the forgiveness. That's supposed to be short-term payroll funding. The SBA emergency loans and disaster relief grants can be used over a longer period. They're basically designed to help you for cash flow over the course. So in a few that I've seen that have come through, they were fairly substantial, more than they needed in the 8-week period. Some of these programs cross each other, so you have to be careful and really talk with an advisor. If you're going to use a PPP program, you may have some other limitations or not be forgiven on some of the emergency grant relief. But for the most part, they were giving you a 30-year maturity on the SBA loans, deferral of payments, especially during this cash crunch initially. And so you'll have, but it's supposed to be used for operating expenses and payroll, not to expand your company, but basically use to keep you afloat.
Okay. We have a comment from a viewer in New Jersey. We are being advised by our accountants to set up a separate bank account and deposit funds there so that the records are clear when we later reconcile and attempt to get loan forgiveness. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that comment?
Correct. Yeah, there's been a lot of recommendations. You will have to track specifically and provide proof of what you've used the PPP loan money for. So especially with larger loans, we've advised clients to open a separate bank account, use your regular checking account, and then fund from the PPP account the money that you're actually spending for payroll and allowable expenditures. For smaller companies and smaller amounts, as long as they keep a detailed record of what they're spending, again, we're suggesting for them that they don't need to have another bank account and move money back and forth, that they would track those expenses separately in their chart of accounts if they're using QuickBooks or another software program, so that they will have the details and very specific about what the money's been spent.
Good. Justin, do we have any more questions? One more
Absolutely.
question.
We have a few more relating to this topic, and then we have some general questions that I think we'll swing back and cover at the end. How does that sound, Mark?
Well, I think we're almost out of time, but go ahead. Go ahead.
So we've had a few questions, and those questions are, Jeff, what is the economic outlook for the rest of the year? And then kind of how does that compare to maybe the economic downturn in 2008?
I've seen
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I've seen a couple of comments so far. Most people originally thought that this was going to 2 weeks incubation period, maybe another couple of weeks. The latest thing I read today, they were putting out projections of when they thought they could start to reopen more businesses. And it really depends on your state. So again, I've seen everything from early May to sometime into June before things may start to get back to normal and people would get back to work, maybe doing it slowly. Certainly it's going to change and still have social distancing, maybe even the mask for a while. Economically, some companies have done very well. I think if you're a liquor store, you've done very well over the last few weeks. But for other businesses, they've seen a real downturn in revenues. So when that's going to come back is going to be based on when people are comfortable, have money, and can go out and buy things. Right now, they're sticking to necessities, medicine, food, housing, and so the wants are being put to the side.
Okay. Oh, Justin, any more questions? We have a little more time here.
Yeah, Mark, I think we've had a few questions from the audience. The first time it came from Frank J. Camardo Jr., and that's, how do you join the order?
Join the order. Well, there's a couple ways. You can get on the website, our national website, and look up where a local lodge might be in your area. But if there's no local lodge in your area, you can join our organization as an at-large member. So that can also be done on the website, OSIA.org. And just go to that and look at membership and look at becoming an at-large member if you don't have a local lodge. If you have a local lodge in your area, just attend a lodge meeting. Go to their website, find out what time they're meeting, and go and meet the people and see how much fun it can be. Okay? Anything else, Justin?
That looks like it from the audience at the moment.
All right. Well, I think this is a good time to thank Jeff very much for helping those affected by this terrible tragedy with some timely expert financial advice and counseling. I know that when I go in and speak to my accountant, the meter is running. So people have been able to get some information here from our accountant, and we're very happy to provide that to them to help everybody make it through this tragedy. So again, Jeff, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your expertise and all the wonderful things you do for the Sons and Daughters of Italy. Thank you. So For those of you that would like to learn more about Zoom meetings and social media, the Sons and Daughters of Italy is sponsoring a webinar on Tuesday, April 28th at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. And presenting on the webinar will be our National First Vice President, Bob Bianchi, who is a media star in of himself, our membership co-chair, Dan Onofrio, Dr. Mary Kovac, and our special guest speaker on the webinar will be Lisa Marie Falbo, an expert social media consultant from Long Shot Productions. So watch for a flyer on our social media pages, which will contain a link to Tuesday's webinar, and I hope you all can attend. So thanks to all of you for watching. Please return to our site for more programming in the near future that we are very excited about. I think on Tuesday, in addition to the webinar, we will be having a special guest, Clarissa Burt, who's an American actress, and she also has very strong ties to Italy. She had a modeling career in Italy, and she's going to talk about her experiences in Italy, and she was over there recently, and we want to get her view on what was going on there when she was over there recently in March. For those interested in the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America, please consider joining as an at-large member, again, at OSIA.org. Also, please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All likes and shares are greatly appreciated. And we will be providing some outstanding programming in the near future and hope to see you then. So Justin, thank you for doing a wonderful job as coordinating all the moving pieces and to getting this to work so well. And again, Jeff, thank you for coming on and being part of this and helping advise our members and everybody else watching in the lodges. Wonderful advice. Thanks for your time.
Good evening, guys.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're